The house was alive with music and laughter, the kind of noise that filled every room and made even the walls feel young. Solomon Brewer stood just inside the front door of his son's home in Brookline, holding his coat in one hand and a small velvet box in the other. He had imagined this moment for 5 years. Every birthday, every holiday, he had waited until Lucy turned 21. Now, here she was, glowing with youth and surrounded by college friends, her auburn hair falling over her shoulders just the way Eleanor's once had. Solomon hesitated before stepping farther inside. The living room was warm and full of people. Empty wine glasses sat on end tables, wrapping paper gathered in messy piles at their feet. Lucy sat cross-legged on the rug in front of the fireplace, laughing with a group of girls dressed in stylish jeans and perfectly curated accessories. She looked up and noticed her grandfather standing there. Her smile was immediate but brief. "Grandpa," she called, "you made it." He smiled, the lines at the corners of his eyes deepening. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Dennis appeared from the kitchen, placing a hand on his father's shoulder. "Glad you came, Dad. Lucy's been opening gifts. You're just in time." Solomon nodded and moved closer, the box still tucked gently in his palm. He waited for Lucy to finish thanking one of her friends for a high-end makeup set before he stepped forward. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he said, offering the box. Her eyes lit up with curiosity. "From Grandpa? This better be good," she joked, glancing at her friends, who giggled behind their glasses of Chardonnay. Lucy opened the velvet box with a dramatic flair, then froze. Inside lay a necklace, platinum with 3 deep red rubies surrounded by tiny diamonds. It rested on aged silk, a delicate, timeless piece. "This," Solomon said softly, "belonged to your great-great-grandmother. Then, to your great-grandmother, then to your grandmother. I've kept it safe all these years." Lucy stared at the necklace for no more than 2 seconds. She shut the box with a snap, placed it back on the coffee table, and gave a small laugh. "Grandpa, this looks like cheap junk from a flea market," she said, waving a hand dismissively. The room fell silent. Dennis cleared his throat. "Lucy." Sarah shifted awkwardly on the couch, avoiding her father-in-law's eyes. Lucy waved them off. "Stop defending it, Dad. It's ancient. I mean, seriously, this old thing? Come back when you have a real present, like something made after the invention of Wi-Fi." Her friends chuckled, but a few exchanged uncertain looks. Solomon stood still, hand halfway between the box and his chest. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. The velvet box sat like a coffin on the polished table, small and full of meaning that had just been crushed in one careless sentence. He finally let his hand drop and took a step back. Lucy had already turned back to her friends. "Sorry, girls. Old people don't get modern style." Dennis leaned in. "Dad, it's fine," Solomon said quickly, more for his own sake than his son's. He looked at Lucy one last time, her laughter already rising again in the room, and then turned toward the door. The cool spring air hit his face as he stepped outside. His car waited in the driveway, steady and unassuming, just like it had been for years. He opened the driver's side door, slid inside, and rested the box against his chest for a moment. Eleanor's voice echoed in his memory. "Promise me, Saul, only when she's ready." He placed the box gently in the glove compartment, started the engine, and drove home. His neighborhood in Waltham was quiet when he arrived. Porch lights glowed softly on either side of the street, and wind rustled the tree branches above the parked cars. Solomon walked slowly to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped into the silence of his home. It smelled faintly of cedar and old books, a comfort he no longer took for granted. He took off his coat, held it for a moment, and then reached into the inner pocket to retrieve the box. He walked to the living room, placed it on the coffee table, and sat in his chair, the one Eleanor had picked out for their 30th anniversary. Above the mantel, her portrait smiled down at him. Her eyes, kind and watchful, seemed to ask a question he already knew the answer to. "Well, Eleanor," he whispered, "she wasn't ready." He opened the box one more time. The rubies caught the lamplight, glowing like tiny drops of wine. He ran his fingers along the chain, smooth and cool to the touch. It was still beautiful, still everything Eleanor had told him it was. He closed the box gently and rose from his chair. Upstairs, behind a portrait and a combination lock, the family safe waited. Solomon placed the box back where it had sat for the past 5 years. He closed the door and turned the lock with steady hands. Then he sat in the dark for a long time, wondering if love could survive being laughed at, and if a necklace, no matter how priceless, could wait just a little longer for someone to become worthy of it. The house was still. Solomon Brewer moved through it as if through memory, each step quiet and deliberate. The lamp in the corner cast a soft golden glow across the living room, and the ticking of the old wall clock seemed louder than usual. It was the kind of night where the past felt closer than the present. He sat down in his armchair again, the cushion shaped perfectly to his form. On the coffee table lay the velvet box, now closed, waiting once more like it had for years. He stared at it in silence, remembering how long he had held on to it, not just as jewelry, but as a promise. Solomon opened the drawer beneath the table and pulled out a leather folder. Inside were neatly arranged documents, insurance statements, old photographs, and at the bottom, a cream-colored envelope with handwriting he knew by heart. Eleanor. Her letters had always been graceful, her penmanship as precise as her personality. He slid the letter out and unfolded it gently. The paper was worn along the edges, but the ink had not faded. Her words felt as alive as they did the day she wrote them. My dearest Saul, if you are reading this, then our Lucy has turned 21. You've held on to that necklace all these years, and I am proud of you for keeping it safe. But now comes the hard part. Please do not give it to her unless she shows the kind of heart worthy of its history. If she is too caught up in this modern world, too dismissive of where she came from, then wait. Wait until she learns. Wait until she understands that some things can only be earned, through kindness, through sacrifice, through family. With all my love, Eleanor. He read it twice, then a third time. The words settled over him like a blanket, warm, heavy, full of meaning. She had known. Somehow, she had known that this moment would come, that Lucy, full of life and ambition, might not yet be ready to understand what that necklace truly represented. He leaned back, staring at her portrait above the fireplace. You were right, he whispered. She isn't ready. Not yet. Memories of Eleanor drifted in, uninvited but welcome. He saw her again on their wedding day, standing in white silk, the necklace at her throat glowing like a promise. Her grandmother had insisted she wear it, something old, something sacred. He saw her later, comforting their son Dennis after a scraped knee, reading bedtime stories by the fire, planting tulips in the spring. She had worn that necklace on special days, anniversaries, family reunions, their 40th wedding anniversary when they danced in the backyard under string lights while neighbors clapped and cheered. That necklace had never been about money. It had always been about love, continuity, the quiet dignity of remembering where you came from. Solomon's hand rested on the folder. He had not shown it to Dennis, had not spoken about the necklace's full value or the appraisal letter tucked inside. That was Eleanor's decision, and now his burden. It was not just a piece of jewelry, it was a test of character. The house was quiet, except for the creak of wood and the sigh of the old heating system. He rose and walked slowly to the kitchen, placing a kettle on the stove. While waiting for the water to boil, he pulled out the old landline and dialed a familiar number. Hello? Mike, it's Saul. There was a pause. Well now, that's a voice I don't hear every night. Everything okay? Solomon hesitated. Do you remember that necklace Eleanor used to wear? Of course, Mike replied. You two slow danced every anniversary with that thing sparkling on her neck like a crown. I gave it to Lucy. There was a silence on the line. She opened the box, looked at it for all of 3 seconds, then called it junk, said it looked like something from a flea market. Good Lord, Mike muttered. I hope you took it back. I did. Another pause. She's young, Solomon added, though the words tasted hollow. Maybe she just doesn't understand. Or maybe, Mike said gently, you gave her a legacy she hasn't earned yet. Solomon said nothing as the kettle began to whistle. He poured water over a tea bag and carried the cup back to his armchair. Mike's voice hummed softly through the receiver. I had a similar moment last week, he said. My grandson asked why I keep my father's watch when I could just use my phone. Solomon chuckled, the sound dry. Different times. Different values, Mike corrected. But sometimes I wonder if it's us who are out of step. Solomon looked down at the letter in his lap. Eleanor once said that love often comes in strange packages. I think she meant this. Then trust her, Mike said. She always saw things clearly. They said their goodnights. Solomon hung up the phone, sat quietly for a long time, then rose again. He placed the letter back in its folder and returned the documents to the drawer. Before heading upstairs, he looked one last time at the velvet box. Lucy was not a bad person. She was smart, beautiful, and had a bright future ahead. But she had not yet learned that true worth had little to do with price tags and everything to do with heart. And Eleanor's necklace, crafted nearly a century ago, passed through 4 generations, was not for show. It was for someone who understood that the past mattered, that family was not a fashion, and that some gifts carried the weight of love too deep to measure. So he would wait. And perhaps one day, Lucy would understand. The spring morning unfolded like any other. Solomon Brewer followed his usual routine. Coffee at dawn, a glance at the newspaper without reading much of it, then a trip to Henderson's Market to restock milk, bread, and his favorite blueberry muffins. It was Thursday, and on Thursdays he made a point to smile at Mary Castellano behind the checkout counter and ask about her son Tommy. As always, the drive to the store took 17 minutes. His radio playing softly, but mostly ignored. The streets were calm, trees swaying gently in the April breeze, and the sky a hopeful kind of blue. Everything about the day felt ordinary, comforting, until he returned home. The moment he turned onto his driveway in Waltham, something pulled at him. A flicker of wrongness, quiet but insistent. His front door was not closed all the way. It stood slightly ajar, maybe 2 inches, no more, but enough to send a chill down his spine. He stopped the car, engine running. He remembered locking that door, twice, like always. He sat there for a full minute, staring at the sliver of darkness between the door and its frame. His hand reached for his phone. For a second, he considered calling Dennis, or the police. But what if he had just forgotten? What if his age was finally beginning to play tricks on him? No, he had checked the lock. He always checked the lock. He turned off the ignition, stepped out of the car, and walked carefully toward the porch. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, the house looked off. The umbrella stand by the front entrance had been nudged out of place. The hall table drawer was open. A small vase lay on its side, unbroken, but clearly moved. He stepped into the living room, and his heart sank. The couch cushions were upturned. His coffee table drawers, the ones holding years of documents and family papers, were wide open. Papers were scattered across the floor like fallen leaves, and the portrait above the fireplace, Eleanor's portrait, hung crooked. Solomon's breath caught. He moved faster than he had in years, nearly stumbling as he climbed the stairs 2 at a time. He reached the safe hidden behind the painting in his bedroom. The wall safe door hung open, empty. The velvet jewelry box, gone. His mind went blank for a moment. He stared into the void where Eleanor's necklace had rested for so long, trying to process what had just happened. 5 years of waiting, 5 years of holding on to her last request. All gone. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I've been robbed, he said, his voice rough. Someone broke into my home and stole something very valuable. Sir, are you safe? Is the intruder still there? I do not know. I just got home. Then a sound. From downstairs. A cabinet closing. the creak of footsteps on linoleum. He whispered into the phone, "Someone's still here. Stay on the line. Officers are en route." But Solomon was already moving. He placed the phone on his dresser, crept toward the stairs, and descended slowly, each wooden step creaking under his weight. The kitchen came into view. The back door stood open, sunlight spilling in. And there, crouched near the exit, was a figure stuffing something into a canvas tote bag. Solomon's breath caught in his throat. Auburn hair, familiar posture. Lucy. His granddaughter froze when she saw him, the bag clutched to her chest, her face pale, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" he asked. His voice was calm, but it trembled with something deeper than shock. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The corner of the velvet box peeked out of the bag, unmistakable. "You robbed me," he said, the words dry and disbelieving. Grandpa, Her voice cracked. "I needed the money." He stepped forward. "You stole your grandmother's necklace." Tears welled in Lucy's eyes. "I did not want to, I swear. I cannot fix this any other way. You violated our home, Eleanor's memory, everything we taught you." "I was going to return it," she said quickly, desperate now. "After I sold it, after I paid off some things, I was going to tell you I lost it somehow, that it got misplaced." Solomon stared at her, not in anger, in disbelief, grief. "How much money?" he asked quietly. Lucy sagged against the doorway. 5,000, across 3 credit cards. She moved to the kitchen table, and somehow they both ended up sitting, Solomon across from his granddaughter, criminal and victim, but also family. "I am drowning," she whispered. "Everyone at school has money, real money, trust funds. I tried to keep up, clothes, spring break, dinners. I thought I could sell it, fix everything, and no one would know." "You were going to let me believe a stranger did this," Solomon said. "That someone broke into my home." Lucy wiped her nose. "I was ashamed. So ashamed. I made stupid choices. I panicked." Solomon stared at the bag in her lap. "You researched it." "I saw the appraisal. 120,000. I thought I would only sell it for 20, just enough to pay what I owe." "And the rest?" "I figured you would not notice," she said, quieter than ever. He closed his eyes. His heart hurt, not from the betrayal, but from the understanding that the girl he had once tucked in after bedtime stories had grown into someone who could steal from the people who loved her most. A noise outside snapped them back. Police. Red and blue lights danced across the walls. Lucy's face drained of color. "They're here for me," she whispered. Solomon stood. "Go to the basement, now. Behind the furnace there is a storage room. Stay there. Do not make a sound." "Grandpa, go." She obeyed. Solomon walked to the front door, composed his face, and opened it before they could knock. 2 officers stood on the porch, their uniforms crisp, expressions serious. "Mr. Brewer?" one asked. "I am Officer Ramirez. You reported a break-in?" "Yes," Solomon said, keeping his voice steady. "And I am terribly sorry. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" "I thought someone broke in, but I must have forgotten to lock the door. Nothing's missing. Nothing's damaged. Just an old man being too cautious." The younger officer looked skeptical. "You are sure, sir?" "Absolutely. They made him sign a report. He wrote the check for the false call fine, $500, nearly a month's worth of groceries, but worth every penny." After they left, Solomon stood by the door for a long moment. Then he called to the basement. "Lucy, you can come up now." She emerged slowly, tears streaming down her face. "You lied to the police," she said. "For me?" "I protected my family," he replied. "There's a difference." They sat in silence. The kitchen had never felt so heavy, so filled with things left unsaid. The bag with the necklace now rested on the counter, untouched. Solomon sat at the table with a legal pad in front of him, pen in hand. Lucy sat across from him, her hands trembling in her lap, eyes red and swollen. She looked smaller than he had ever seen her, not just physically, spiritually. He poured 2 glasses of water and slid one across to her. She took it, her fingers brushing the rim like she was afraid of breaking it. "I do not know how to fix this," she whispered. "I do," Solomon said gently, "but you are not going to like it." Lucy nodded, barely. "I deserve that." He picked up the pen and began writing. "First," he said, not looking at her, "we are going to call your parents. Tonight. You are going to tell them the truth." She inhaled sharply. "No more lies," he continued. "No half versions. No sugarcoating. They need to hear it from you. Completely. They will hate me. They will be disappointed. They may even cry. But they will not hate you. Because they love you. And love tells the truth." Lucy nodded again, her voice too tangled to speak. "Second," Solomon said, writing in slow, deliberate strokes, "I will pay your debts, all $5,000, but you will work it off." Her eyes widened. "Work it off how?" "Community service, 50 hours per 1,000. She did the math silently. 250 hours. He nodded. "Preferably through the Student Volunteer Center, soup kitchens, after-school programs. You choose, but you earn it back." Lucy swallowed hard. "Okay." "Third," he said, "you are going to attend financial counseling. Your college offers it, yes?" "Yes." "Good. You will go every week until the semester ends. Budgeting, spending habits, debt awareness. If you do not take it seriously, the deal is off." She nodded quickly now. "Fourth," he said, "you will call me every Sunday evening. Not text, not email. Call. We will talk for at least 15 minutes. I want to know how you are doing, not as your banker, as your grandfather." Her lips began to tremble. Solomon wrote each rule on the yellow paper, pressing down hard enough to leave an imprint through 3 sheets. When he finished, he signed the bottom. He passed the pad across the table. Lucy stared at it. "What about the necklace?" "When you graduate, debt-free," he said, "when you have spent at least 1 full year showing responsible financial behavior. When you can explain to me what family loyalty means without reading it from a textbook, then we will talk about the necklace." She looked up. "That could take years." "Good things usually do." Her shoulders began to shake. He thought she might argue. Instead, she reached for the pen and signed her name beneath his, her hand shaky but sure. When she looked up again, her face had changed. There was shame, yes, but also something else. Determination. "Grandpa," she said softly, "why are you giving me another chance after what I did?" He sat back, folding the contract. "Because your grandmother believed in second chances. Because you are 21 and still learning. Because I love you enough to set boundaries." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "And because," he added, "true family does not abandon each other in crisis. We hold one another accountable, but we do not walk away." Lucy covered her face with her hands, sobbing in a way that was not manipulative, not performative, just real. Solomon stood, came around the table, and pulled her into his arms. He had not held her like this in years, not since she was 7, and woke from a nightmare, trembling and calling for him in the dark. She felt just as small now, just as in need of safety. "We'll call your parents in an hour," he said, his voice low. "Together. Then we will begin." She nodded against his chest, still crying. For the first time since Eleanor's portrait was knocked crooked, hope returned to the house. The call was harder than Lucy expected. She sat on Solomon's living room couch, her phone on speaker between them. Her parents' voices came through, first light and curious, then quiet, then strained, then broken. Dennis did not raise his voice. Sarah did not scream, but their silence said more than any angry words could have. "You stole from your grandfather," Dennis said finally, voice low with disbelief. "You broke into his house." "I know," Lucy whispered, "and I am so sorry." Solomon spoke gently, stepping in when the silence grew too thick. She confessed everything, Dennis. Every detail. And she is going to make it right. Sarah's voice cracked. You could have come to us. We would have helped. Why would you lie to us? I thought I had ruined everything already, Lucy said. I was drowning in debt. I was ashamed. The line fell quiet for several seconds. Then Dennis said, We are heartbroken, Lucy. But we are still your parents. We are not giving up on you. They agreed to talk again the next evening. For now, they needed time to process. When the call ended, Lucy leaned back on the couch, eyes closed, her face pale. That was the hardest thing I have ever done, she whispered. Solomon nodded. Then it was probably the right thing. That night they shared a quiet meal, grilled cheese sandwiches, tomato soup, the same food Eleanor used to make when Lucy was little. She moved through Solomon's kitchen with the awkward grace of someone rediscovering an old rhythm. She remembered where the soup bowls were. She remembered how to turn the faucet just right so it would not squeak. After dinner, they loaded the dishwasher together. Solomon noticed how carefully she moved, how deliberately she avoided touching the velvet box still resting on the kitchen table. Do you want me to put it back in the safe? She asked softly. Not yet, he said. Not until we both feel it is safe again. Later that night, Solomon handed her a blanket and pointed to the guest room. Door sticks a little on the left, he said. You will have to tug. I remember, she said with a small smile. He stood in the hallway as she entered the room. For a moment, she paused. Grandpa? She asked. Yes, sweetheart? Thank you for not calling the police. He gave a small nod. Thank you for not running. The next morning, Lucy rose early. She looked tired but determined. She had written a checklist on notebook paper. Financial counselor, volunteer registration, debt repayment plan. She had already circled Sunday evening for their first official phone call. Solomon watched from the kitchen table as she packed her tote bag. You seem different today, he said. I feel different, she replied, like someone pressed a reset button inside me. He smiled but said nothing. Before she left for campus, she picked up the velvet box from the table. Slowly, reverently, she handed it to him. You should keep this hidden, she said. He accepted it with both hands, then opened it briefly. The rubies gleamed in the morning light, unchanged by everything they had just endured. I will, he said. Together, they returned to the safe. Solomon entered the code, Eleanor's birthday, then his, and opened the door. Inside sat family documents, photographs, and now the necklace once again. Lucy stared at it for a long time. She would have been disappointed in me, she said quietly. No, Solomon replied. She would have been proud that you stopped yourself, that you came back. He closed the safe slowly. The soft click of the lock felt final. Clean. Back on campus, Lucy moved through her day like a shadow. Quiet, observant, reserved. She skipped her usual coffee run, avoided her sorority sisters, sat alone during lunch. That afternoon, she walked into the financial counselor's office for the first time. I need help, she said, before the woman could ask why she was there. I made a mess. I want to clean it up. The counselor, a woman named Renee with kind eyes and a firm voice, nodded slowly. Then you have already taken the hardest step. They scheduled weekly sessions. Renee assigned her a budgeting workbook and a debt tracker. Lucy left the office feeling like someone had handed her a map after weeks of walking lost in fog. Her next stop was the volunteer center. I need hours, she told the student coordinator. How many? 250. The student raised an eyebrow. That is, a lot. I earned it. He handed her a clipboard. You will have your pick: homeless shelter, animal rescue, after-school tutoring. I will do all three, Lucy said. That evening, she texted Solomon. Lucy, signed up for counseling. Registered for service hours. We'll call Sunday at 7. Solomon. Proud of you. Keep going. For the first time in months, Lucy slept without waking up in panic. Not because everything was fixed, but because it had finally begun. 2 weeks later, the phone rang at exactly 7 o'clock on Sunday evening. Solomon smiled before answering. Hi, Grandpa, it's Lucy. Her voice was clear, calm, steady. Right on time, he said. How was your week? Better, she said. I met with Renee again. We made a repayment plan. I also finished 20 hours of volunteer work. Already? I did evening shifts at the soup kitchen downtown. It was eye-opening. She paused, then added, There was a little boy who asked me if we had peanut butter sandwiches. He said they reminded him of home. Her voice caught slightly. I gave him 2. Solomon leaned back in his chair. Your grandmother would have liked that. I think she would have, Lucy said quietly. They spoke for another 15 minutes, about school, about her classes, about small things like weather and meals, and the best way to clean old picture frames. Before they said goodbye, Lucy hesitated. Grandpa, she said, I have been thinking about the necklace. Solomon did not respond right away. And I think I understand now, she continued. It is not about jewelry, or money, or even tradition. Then what is it about? It is about becoming someone who honors the past, someone who protects what matters most. It is about not just being part of a family, but choosing to carry its legacy forward. Solomon was quiet. Through his living room window, Eleanor's portrait watched in the golden lamplight. Her smile somehow looked fuller. When you truly understand that, Lucy, he said gently, then we will talk about your inheritance. I do, she whispered. I believe you, Solomon replied, but let us give it more time. Keep learning. Keep growing. I will, she said. I promise. Spring turned to summer. Lucy came home 3 times, not for money, not for comfort, just to help. She washed Solomon's windows. She organized old photo albums. They planted tulips together in Eleanor's garden bed. She asked about family recipes. She wrote down her grandmother's lemon bread instructions word for word. She worked her hours, tutoring underprivileged middle schoolers, cleaning animal cages, delivering meals to shut-ins. Slowly, her debt disappeared. So did her shame. One afternoon in July, Solomon invited her to the living room. I want to show you something, he said. She sat on the couch while he opened the safe and retrieved the velvet box. He did not hand it to her. He simply placed it on the table between them. When I met your grandmother, he said, she was wearing this necklace. It was the only thing she had left from her mother. Lucy listened without interrupting. She wore it at our wedding. She wore it when we buried her father. She wore it on our anniversary every year, no matter how broke we were. He opened the box. The rubies gleamed in the light. She never sold it. Not when we needed car repairs. Not when Dennis got sick and the medical bills came. Never. He looked at her, eyes soft but firm. Because she believed some things were too precious to measure in dollars. Lucy nodded slowly. She was right. He closed the box again and pushed it gently toward her. This is still not yours, he said. Not yet. I understand. But one day, he added, if you keep becoming the woman she believed you could be, it will be. Lucy's hands stayed in her lap. Until then, she said, it belongs right where it is. Solomon smiled. Later that night, after Lucy had gone back to campus, he returned the necklace to the safe, but this time, he did not lock it away in fear. He placed it in the center, beside Eleanor's letters, atop the family album. The velvet box did not feel like a coffin anymore. It felt like a seed, and it was growing. Some stories do not end with fireworks or final applause. They settle like soft dust on the soul, leaving us quieter, more thoughtful, changed in the ways that matter most. This is one of those stories. It began with a gift wrapped in velvet and history, offered from love, rejected in pride, and nearly lost to desperation. A grandfather, long widowed but never alone in memory, extended his heart through a family heirloom. What he received instead was betrayal cloaked in modern hunger. But beneath that betrayal, buried deep, was something more familiar than either of them expected. Fear, shame, and the aching desire to belong. And in the end, not justice by force, but healing through choice. Lucy did not redeem herself in a single day. Trust wasn't rebuilt with an apology or a tidy solution. It took time, humility, and the hard work of making things right without expecting immediate reward. Her grandfather, Solomon, could have handed her over to the authorities. He could have turned his back, shut the safe, and walked away forever. But he chose to remember who raised him, who loved him, who once wore that necklace with quiet dignity. Because sometimes, the right thing is not the easy thing. The lesson here isn't about a piece of jewelry. It is not even about money or inheritance. It is about the invisible threads that tie us to those who came before us, and how easy it is to forget their weight when life feels urgent and uncertain. We live in a world where appearances shimmer louder than truth. But behind every cheap gift may rest a lifetime of meaning, and behind every harsh word might be a cry for help. So before we dismiss someone or something as worthless, let us remember, the most precious things in life often come dressed in ordinary clothing. Hold your ground when your values are challenged, but hold your heart open too. Defend your family's legacy, not with anger, but with clarity and compassion. For as Eleanor once knew and Solomon finally saw, justice without love is punishment, but justice with mercy is restoration. Like a quiet lantern in the window, a single act of grace can light the path through our darkest hours. So, if this story has stirred something in you, maybe a memory, a regret, or even a chance to forgive, take a moment. Reflect on the necklace in your own life, the thing you hold dear, the lesson you hope someone learns before it's too late. And if this story touched your heart, consider passing it on. Not for likes, not for follows, but to remind someone out there that love, dignity, and second chances are still alive and well. Sometimes, the truest wealth we carry is the courage to begin again.